G'day guys, the new World Eaters Codex is out now and there are so many changes to the way that each unit within this faction plays, but no unit got a better upgrade than the humble Helbrute. So in today's video, I'm going to break down this unit in detail. We're going to pull up the data sheet and go through all of the information that relates to the Helbrute. We're going to talk about all of the different weapon loadouts and which ones you should use to optimize your unit. We're going to talk about the truly insane ability that the Helbrute has and how to get the most out of that ability. We're going to talk about the different detachments and which ones give the most benefits to the Helbrute. And then finally, we're going to put some models on the table and give an active demonstration on how to utilize the Helbrute most effectively in your games of Warhammer 40k. So with that being said, let's jump into the video.
Look for the Blood God.
Alrighty guys, before we jump into the video, I have a quick update for you. Unfortunately, my Etsy store has had most of the lines on it delisted due to copyright infringements with Games Workshop. Now, to be honest, this is totally fair enough. A lot of what I was selling were knockoffs or proxies of Games Workshop models. My intent was never to profit at the expense of anybody else. My intent was to basically provide some value to the community and then have the community be able to show their support for me by purchasing these models that I could then turn revenue into better quality videos to provide more value for the community. So I was aiming for a reciprocal relationship here, never intending to rip anybody off. However, I can see from Games Workshop's perspective that if I'm selling their models without their permission, that does cut into their profits. So they've taken my listings down, which is totally fair enough. The side effect of that is that I now have 14 Helbrutes that I have no way to use and no way to sell. So, it is what it is. That does lead into a completely separate and completely unrelated offer that I have for you guys, and that is that the next 14 people to buy a set of black dice from my Etsy store, one of the remaining listings, are going to get a free gift alongside their order. So if you want to pick up some dice and get a free gift with those, head over to my Etsy store today and pick up some Blog for the Blood God dice. With all of that being said, let's jump into the video. Alrighty guys, let's just do a real quick review overcap of the Helbrute's datasheet. Now he's only 120 points, which makes him one of the cheapest units in the World Eaters army outside of things like your Jackals. He's got a movement of 9 inches, so he's pretty quick. His toughness 9, quite tough. 2 up save, which is fantastic. He's got 8 wounds, 6 up leadership, and he's OC 3. Now that profile in itself is pretty impressive. It's worth noting that he is a vehicle, which means he's not going to be able to walk through walls, etc. But overall, that stat line for 120 points is pretty good. He's got the same amount of OC as a unit of 8 bound. He's got, essentially the same amount of wounds. 8 bound would have 9 wounds. He has 8 wounds, so 1 less. But he has a 2 up save. He's toughness 9, so he's arguably significantly tougher than 8 bound. Has the same OC utility, roughly the same movement characteristic. The deficit being that he is a vehicle, so can't go through walls. But let's have a look at his weapon loadout options, and then I'll break down some of my top picks for how to load this guy out. Alright, so if we have a look at his war gear options here, basically he's got a left and a right arm. In his right arm, he can either have plasma cannon, auto cannon, heavy bolter, las cannon, or a Helbrute fist. For this, I recommend the Helbrute fist because we're going for an absolute combat monster here. And then in his other hand, he can either have a missile launcher, a Helbrute fist, a Helbrute hammer, or a power scourge. Now, there's some people that make the argument for the power scourge, but I am a strong proposal for the hammer. I think the hammer is fantastic, and we'll pull up its data sheet in a moment, and we'll talk about why I think the hammer is important. But the way I load these guys out is a fist in one hand and a hammer in the other. And then in the fist, you can either put a combi bolter or a heavy flamer. I always go for the heavy flamer, and that's the weapon loadout that I recommend on this guy. Now, you could go with the Scourge if you wanted to. Depends on what you put in the rest of your list, and depends on what your local meta is like, what type of targets you're likely to go into. But let's go have a look at the data sheets for those melee weapons and discuss the differences. Right, so we've got the data sheets here. So you can see that the fist has got 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 12, AP 2, 3 damage. So that's a very, very strong profile. And then the hammer has the same 6 attacks. It's hitting on 4s instead of on 3s, but it's strength 14, AP 3, D6 plus 1 damage. Now, there's two main things in here that I think make the hammer a standout choice as your second option. And that is that it is strength 14, which means even toughness 7 things. You're wounding on 2s, which is really cool. But it's mainly the AP 3, meaning you go into things that have 2-up saves. If they Armor of Contempt, you're still pushing them to their 4-up invulnerable save. And the D6 plus 1 damage is really good into things that have -1 damage or half incoming damage, those sorts of things. Whereas if you only go in with your 3 damage, you're going to get 2. You're going to be dealing 2 damage for every failed save they have. Whereas if you're D6 plus 1, you could, if you roll low and you roll a 1, then you only do the 1 damage. But if you roll high and you roll like a 5 or a 6, now you're doing significant chunks of damage to those units that have that -1 damage type of ability. I'm thinking things like Magnus, Emperor's Children, Winged Demon Princes, those sorts of things, Deathwing Knights, all of those really chunky, annoying units. The other option, however, instead of the Helbrute Hammer that a lot of people do go for, and there's nothing wrong with this, is the Power Scourge. Now, with the Power Scourge, you get 10 attacks, so significantly more attacks than with the Fist or the Hammer. You're hitting on 3s, so you're as accurate as you are with the Fist. It's strength 7, AP 1, 2 damage. Now, the AP 1 for me on this is a bit of a deal breaker because anything with a reasonable save is just going to laugh this off. But this is really good if you were to go into hordes. If you go into a ton of Tyrannid Gaunts frequently, or if you go into things like Necron Warriors, or if you're going into, all of those sorts of units that have lots of bodies, or even just little things like a 10-man guardsman unit, being able to just go, cool, there's 10 of you, I have 10 attacks, I'm going to be hitting you on 3s, wounding you on 2s, and having a decent chance of killing you. A strong argument could be made for the Power Surge. However, Scourge, sorry. However, I think that given what the rest of the World Eater's army excels at, which is killing hordes, I think that the Helbrute is better slotting into most lists as your anti-mech solution. And in those cases, you really do want that hammer. So when you go up against that Land Raider and he's got a 2-up save, and you know he's going to Armor of Contempt, you can go, cool, I'm just going to hit it with the hammer, and I'm going to push it back to a 4-up save, and every failed save is going to be D6 plus 1 damage. It also gives you the capacity to re-roll one of those D6s, so if you roll a 1 for the damage, you can spend a CP to effectively do an additional D6 damage to the target. Really, really powerful. I think in most lists, most of the time, the best way to do this is going to be to take the hammer. But there are a few reasons that we're opting for 2 melee weapons as well, which leads into the unit's abilities. So let's have a look at those abilities on this Helbrute's data sheet. Blog for the Blood God exclusive high quality dice. Blog for the Blood God exclusive high quality dice. Blog for the Blood God exclusive high quality dice. Hi, I'm Dean Simbeck, President and CEO of Blog for the Blood God's exclusive high-quality dice warehouse and emporium. Due to a shipping error, I'm currently overstocked with Blog for the Blood God exclusive high-quality dice, and I'm passing the savings on to you! Roll 9-inch charges, pass invulnerable saves, roll high for damage, and score lots of hits. Check out the links in the description of this video to pick up your set today. Alright, so in terms of abilities, he's got Deadly Demise 1, whoop-de-doo, he's got the Blessings of Khorne, as does the entire army, but there's 2 main abilities on here that are worth noting. One of them is that if this model's equipped with 2 melee weapons, in addition to its close combat weapon, you add 2 to the attacks characteristic of those 2 weapons. That means with your Fist and your Hammer, you're actually getting 8 attacks instead of 6, and with your Scourge, you'd be getting 12 attacks. Now, this is another reason why I think that the Hammer is better than the Scourge as your secondary weapon, because going from 10 attacks to 12 is not as big of an increase as going from 6 attacks to 8. So it's worth noting that this ability really does turn your Hammer and your Fist into somewhat of a horde clearing thing themselves. Like, if you're going into 5 Marines, you're better off using your Fist than you would be the Scourge. So the Scourge really does only come into play when you're versing really big units of really weak guys, in which case the Scourge is going to give you a competitive edge, but I don't think you're going to need it at that point, because you've got things like Berserkers, you've got things like the Flamer on this guy, you've got things like your Forge Meats, you've got so many things that are really good at dealing with those types of threats that I really don't think the Scourge is necessary. Now, the other ability, and this one's quite controversial, is the Frenzy ability. And basically what this does is in your opponent's shooting phase and in the fight phase, which means yours and your opponent's, each time an enemy unit targets the Helbrute, after that enemy unit has finished making its attacks, this model can either shoot or fight, but when doing so, when resolving those attacks, it must target the enemy unit that shot at it or fought it, right? Now, this ability is absolutely bonkers, and this is why I want to get some models out and give you guys a run through of the specifics of how this works, because it's kind of confusing, it's kind of complicated, and also a lot of people get shocked by it when they see it in action, because if you use it well, this is insanely powerful. So the TLDR is that if your opponent shoots at you, you're going to be able to shoot them back, unless they shoot you and you're in melee, in which case you could then fight them back, which is only going to really take place if there's pistols, because you're within engagement range, therefore you're eligible to fight. If you're not within engagement range, you aren't eligible to fight in the shooting phase. This is covered by one of the FAQs they've released. But yeah, basically, if they shoot at you, you can shoot back. This is where that heavy flamer comes into play. If somebody's about to send, some orc breaker boys or something like that to attack you and they shoot you, you can go, cool, I'm going to flamer now in my opponent's shooting phase and kill a bunch of those breaker boys. Really, really effective. But the main way that this comes into play is that every time they make attacks, or every time they select you as a target, they don't even necessarily have to hit you. They select you as a target after they've finished making their melee attacks, you can fight them again, which essentially means you can charge something, pile in, fight it, and if you don't kill it, it fights you back, and then because it just fought you, you're able to fight a second time. And you can string up really crazy combos with this, where after you fight and kill the thing, you can consolidate into another target, and because it's still the fight phase, you're within engagement range now, because you consolidated in, they have to attack you, which then means you get to attack back, and if you kill it, you can then consolidate into the next thing, and you can basically string together a potentially infinite chain of combats that's only really ended by either you failing to kill the target or the target killing you, because it's worth noting each time they're going to get to fight you before you fight them. So you don't want to go, piling into a big unit of something scary that's going to kill you, because then you don't get to make your attacks. So either way, that's what the rule is, and that's how it works. We will get some models out in a moment, and I'll run you through that in detail, but basically that's the unit. Before we chuck models on the table, I want to talk detachments and look at some of the detachments that give the most benefit to people who want to get a lot of value out of their Helbrute. Alright, so the first detachment that I think benefits the Helbrute greatly is the Berserker Warband. This is your index detachment, and the difference is that now it is +2 to your strength characteristic and +1 attack. Now that means that your fist is going in at strength 14 with 9 attacks, and you've also got the hammer, which is going in at strength 16 with 9 attacks, which means toughness 8 vehicles. You're still wounding them on 2s with that hammer. This is absolutely devastating. And there's a few other things in this detachment that work really, really well for the Helbrute as well. One of the things that works really well for the Helbrute is the hack and slash stratagem. So you use it in the fight phase, you select one World Eater's unit, which is your Helbrute, from your army that has not been selected to fight yet this phase, and that made a charge move this turn. Until the end of the phase, improve the armor penetration characteristic of melee weapons equipped by those models by 1. This means that you're able to hit that Land Raider and put it on a 5-up save with your hammer. It means that the fist is going in at AP 3, which is really effective at clearing infantry. And it's worth noting that this lasts for the entire duration of the phase. So if you use this, you charge your Helbrute in, you use this stratagem, you fight something, you fail to kill it, it fights you back, you then get to fight again, and you retain that +1 AP for that second fight. Then you consolidate into something, it fights you, doesn't kill you, you get to fight that thing, you retain that +1 AP for the third fight, and you basically get to keep it for the entire phase. So this is really, really high value on a Helbrute. Another really, really good stratagem for the Helbrute is the Frenzied Resilience. Now, it is 2 command points, so it's pretty expensive, but in the fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, select one World Eater's unit from your army that was selected, as a target of one or more of those attacks until the end of the phase. Each time an attack is allocated to the model in your unit, subtract 1 from the damage characteristic of that attack. So this neg1 damage, in the same way as the +1 AP, lasts for the entire phase. So you charge into something that would normally kill you. Let's say you fail to kill it, right? Now, when it goes to hit you back, you can put neg1 damage on, which means they don't kill you now, which means you get to fight again, which means you now finish off that squad. You can then consolidate into something else that would normally kill you, but because you've got that -1 damage up, it might not kill you, and therefore you're able to activate and fight a third time. And basically, in the same way that that +1 AP lasts for the duration of the phase, so does this neg1 damage. And keeping that Helbrute alive is one of the keys to making this combo work, where you can keep proccing that ability and keep making those attacks. So Frenzied Resilience 2 CP is very expensive, but this could be a game-winning opportunity to use this stratagem on a Helbrute. Alright, the other detachment that I think the Helbrute works quite well in is the Gore-Track Onslaught. Now, you look at the detachment rule here, and it has nothing to do with Helbrutes. It's all about units disembarking from transports, and Helbrutes can't go in transports. However, there is one sneaky little strat in here that's really, really good on a Helbrute. So this stratagem here is an absolute perfect match for the Helbrute. It's called Smash Through, 1 CP. You select one World Eater's vehicle model from your army that has not been selected to move yet this phase. Until the end of the phase, each time it makes a normal or advanced move, it can move horizontally through terrain features. So now you have a Helbrute that's able to move through walls. This is really, really powerful because one of the weaknesses to the Helbrute is that it can't move through walls, right? So it means that you're going to have to move around. Your opponent can do things like screening you out and positioning in such a way that makes it very difficult for your Helbrute to hit its intended target. And not only that, with the Helbrute, in order to get the most mileage out of this trick with the frenzy attacks, is getting them in the right position. Because if you're not within 7 inches of a target, you're not going to be able to consolidate in if you use your Blessings of Corn for a 6-inch consolidate. So making sure that when you hit a target, you hit it from the right position is critical to making the Helbrute work. And this really unlocks that. So while in Gore-Track you're not going to have the additional attack and the additional 2 strength, you also don't have the ability to get the +1 AP or the ability to put neg1 damage on. All of those things could arguably be superseded by this one stratagem, because being able to put the Helbrute in the right position is so important. Another very interesting stratagem in the Gore-Track Onslaught for the Helbrute is Unrelenting Advance. It's 1 CP. In your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has shot, you select one World Eater's vehicle, so this would be your Helbrute, from your army that was hit by one or more of those attacks, and your model can make a normal move of up to 6 inches. Now there's a restriction here talking about how you can't pair this with another stratagem, but you wouldn't in the case of a Helbrute. But basically this means if somebody shoots your Helbrute and fails to kill it, you can reactively move 6 inches. Now, if you're doing Gore-Track, there's an argument to be made to putting a ranged weapon on this guy instead of the hammer, or instead of the fist, so that you have the capacity to utilize this strat even better. Being able to go, okay, cool, you've shot me, well, I'm going to use that to move myself into multi-melter range, or I'm going to use this to move myself around this corner here so that I can see that guy down here, or, there's lots of different stuff you can do with a reactive move. But for me, I still think the best play is the 2 melee weapons, and when somebody shoots you, if they fail to kill you, you just go, cool, I'm just zipping up way closer to you, and now you have an opportunity to shoot me again, but if you fail to kill me, I'm going to be shooting you, and if I'm still here in the next turn, I'm going to be able to come out and do serious damage to you. And also, it allows you to do things like position yourself where something can shoot you. The first thing shoots you, fails to kill you, you use your reactive move to disappear back behind a wall somewhere, and now your opponent can't finish the Helbrute off, which means it's still alive in your turn. You can then jump back out. You can also use it to deny objectives. They shoot you, they fail to kill you, you move on to an objective that they had models on. As long as they don't have more than 3 OC, you're going to be able to out OC them. Or if you had your unit and their unit contesting, you could reactively move the Helbrute on and then flip the objective and make it yours. There's tons of really cool stuff you can do with reactive moves on vehicles. Now, obviously, this detachment is designed around transports, but these things do work on a Helbrute, and they are very, very powerful when executed well. Alright, the last thing that I wanted to talk about in regards to the Helbrute is another unit within the World Eater's army that synergizes quite well with the Helbrute, and that is the 8-bound. The thing that the 8-bound do that synergizes really well with the Helbrute is their Datasheet ability, the Beacons of Rage. And basically, while a friendly World Eater's unit is within 6 inches of this unit, each time a model in that unit makes a melee attack that targets an enemy that's not a monster or a vehicle, you get to add 1 to the hit roll. That's really fantastic. And if you're going into something that's below below half strength, you get to add +1 to the wound roll as well, which is less relevant with the Helbrute because he's so strong. He's going to be winning most things on 2s anyway. But it does mean that you're going in there with this Helbrute and you're getting +1 to hit when targeting infantry. And if you position your 8-bound well, you can get that on multiple activations, and it really increases the chances of your Helbrute killing the target, which is really important so that he can consolidate into the next target, and then kill that, and then consolidate into the next target, and then kill that. Every time he fails to kill the target, the sequence ends. So you've got to make sure that you really are investing in making that Helbrute as deadly as possible, and the 8-bound are a great way to unlock that. Alright, the last thing to mention before we put models on the table and run through some examples is the Blessings of Khorne and which ones you want to select at the start of the battle round to make sure that you're getting the most out of your Helbrute. The first one, and this is in my opinion absolutely critical, is Rage Fueled Invigoration, which is each time a model makes a pile-in move or a consolidate move, it can move up to 6 inches instead of 3. This is the main thing that unlocks the Helbrute, and in my opinion, this is likely to be the thing that they will eventually nerf if they want to fix this Helbrute. If they want to make it so the Helbrute's not as devastating, they will make it so that this 6-inch pile-in and consolidate is for infantry only. And if they do that, the Helbrute takes a significant hit in its competitiveness. But I don't think they're going to do that for a while because that's kind of buried deep. It might be they might start with some points cost changes and things like that to try to tone it down. But basically what this means is that every time you fight with that Helbrute, normally you'd be piling in and consolidating 3 inches, which is going to make it very hard for you to tag multiple units. But with a 6-inch consolidate, it means that if you kill a unit, if the other enemy units are within 7 inches of you, you can consolidate all the way across and touch them and get within engagement range, and then they have to attack you. So being able to cover that distance is absolutely critical. So if you've got Helbrutes and you're planning to use them, you're planning like this is the turn that you're going to bring some in and do charges and things like that, then the Rage Fueled Invigoration is a must-have. The other one that's a must-have is, in my opinion, is Martial Excellence. So you only need to roll a couple of 4s or triple anything to get this, and that's going to give you sustained hits 1. Now, your Helbrutes are going in with 9 attacks with their fists and their hammers, and then they're getting +1 to hit from the 8-bound, so they're hitting on 2s with 9 attacks, and they're going to have sustained hits. With 9 attacks, you're going to average 1.5, because you've got, 1 in 6 to get that 6 to get that sustained, which means that you're going to, on average, you're going to miss 1.5, but you're going to get sustained for 1.5, so you should get 9 total hits. So that means that you're going into a Marine unit, you've got 9 attacks, you're hitting 9 times, you're wounding on 2s, and if you've spent a CP to put their armor save up, you're going to be giving them a 6-up save. This single Helbrute's likely to kill 8 to 9 Marine bodies in a single activation. He's going to very reliably kill 5. He's probably even very reliably going to kill 5 and the character that's attached. So these two abilities combined together make that Helbrute absolutely fantastic. One last thing to mention with the Helbrute that is really, really core to the way that I play them and the way that I think you can get the most value out of the Helbrute, and that is Rapid Ingress. So this you can use in your opponent's movement phase to basically bring on a unit that was in reserves. Now, the Helbrute doesn't have deep strike, so you will have to come on from a table edge within 6 inches because you're going to move on. But that is still really, really powerful because you can come up either of the flanks, and if you're able to come up somewhere unexpected, you're going to be doing insane amounts of damage. Particularly in Gore Track, if you can come on from some table edge outside a line of sight behind a wall, and then in your turn move through the wall and smash into your opponent's lines, and then do this essentially a pinball trick where you bounce around everywhere in their, in their lines, consolidating from unit to unit. can be absolutely devastating. So rapid ingress is another stratagem to remember when you're trying to get the most out of your Helbrutes. But with all of that being said, let's throw some models on the table and see how we can get the most out of this Helbrute.
The Warhammer community suffers from some of the most prohibitively expensive essentials in the world, especially Australian content creators. Every single day, Dean wants to create content, but he can't. Suffering from old, worn-out brushes, expensive model kits, and costly software and equipment, he can't endure much longer. Just look at this dirty paint water. Would you drink this? Would you let your child? Even a small monthly donation can help provide Dean with clean paint water, basic tools for survival, and access to life-saving information and education. So please, follow the links in the description below and find out how you can sponsor a mad cunt like Dean today and end the suffering. Suffering that is cruel, unsustainable, and your fault.
Alrighty guys, to help illustrate the power of the Helbrute, I've set up a few scenarios for you here. One of them, we've got some very unlucky Night Lords, we've got some very unlucky Space Marines, and then we've got some very unlucky Tau Empire. And I'm going to show you right now with models and dice how to get the most out of your Helbrutes. Alrighty guys, so in each of these scenarios we've set up more or less a full army. So we've got a Rhino with some Berserkers inside, a Forge Fiend, some 8-bound, another Forge Fiend, our first Helbrute, another Forge Fiend, another Rhino with some Berserk inside, some more 8-bound. So that's just a rough approximation of what a World Eaters army could be deployed like. Everything deployed behind, terrain so that it can't be shot, up in the corners so that it can advance, on the opponent in a very defensive but aggressively postured deployment style. Then over here, we've got our first victims, which is going to be the Night Lords. Now these guys, given that we have Helbrute Forge Fiends here, here, and here, these guys are hiding behind this Perspex so that the Forge Fiends can't just jump out and shoot them. So you've got some Vindicators up here. You probably wouldn't see 3 Vindicators, but I just think they look cool. You've got a Rhino with some Legionaries and some Chosen inside. You've got some Warp Talons, and you've got some Havocs with Lascannons. So they're all basically positioned so that they can't get shot by that, and that they're relatively far back to make it so it's hard for you to get those charges. Then in this Marine example, we've got a Repulsor with some Eradicators inside of it. We've got some Inceptors with Heavy Bolters, and we've got some Intercessors there sticking that objective, and basically in the same vein, they're deploying so that the Forge Fiend that's over there can't jump out and shoot them because of their Perspex in the way. This Forge Fiend, he couldn't go either side and shoot them either, and neither could that one. This is a very common thing you'll see when you're running 3 Forge Fiends, is people will clump in order to take advantage of those hiding spots behind the ruins, which is really, really good for Old Mate the Helbrute. And then our last example here is some Tau. We've got a couple of Riptides, we've got a Hammerhead, we've got a Devilfish with some Fire Warriors inside, and they're, again, hiding to prevent those Helbrutes from doing the damage, the Forge Fiends from doing their damage. Now, this is often how people will deploy when they're versing you if you have those Forge Fiends, and the idea will be that you have to come out into the open, and then when you do, they pop out and shoot you. So you've got a bit of a stalemate happening here, where we can't come out because they'll shoot us, but they can't come out because we'll shoot them. But what the Helbrute does is it allows you to really take advantage of those sorts of situations. Alright, let's take a look at our first victims, which are the Night Lords. Now, these guys have deployed in such a way that they're safe from the Forge Fiends, etc. But what they haven't factored in is that we can rapid ingress one of our Helbrutes over here so that he is safe. And then in our turn, we're going to 9-inch move him up so that he goes to here. We're going to roll our charge, which is going to be a mighty 10-inch charge. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to use that to position the Helbrute so that he's in base contact with this first Vindicator. Not within base contact of anybody else, but closer to this one than any other unit. right? Now that Helbrute is going to be able to fight. One of the other things that we're going to do at the same time is the 8-bound that were tucked in behind this ruin here. They're going to move out there 10 inches. I'm just going to get them to about here from the wall there. Like so. And then they're also going to charge the Rhino. Boxcars for a charge. Those Blog for the Blood God dice paying off. And they're going to charge something like this. They might even charge a little bit deeper in. So they've base contacted the Rhino. Now, that Helbrute is going to use his hammer, and we're going to spend a CP to get an additional AP on him. So he's got 9 attacks. Now, in this example, we've got sustained hits from the blessings, and we've got the 6-inch pylon and consolidate. He's going to make his attacks like so. He's got 4 hits there, so there's quite a few misses. However, there are 2 sustained hits, so he gets those. Right, now this guy's strength 16, so he's going to be wounding that Vindicator on freeze. He's going to roll his 2 wound rolls, so he's going to get 3 wounds. Now he's going to be AP 4, so 6 up saves on the Vindicator. So the Vindicator passes 1 save. We're going to be doing 2d6 plus 2 damage. There's 10 there, which plus the 2, 11, 12. I believe a Vindicator's got 12 wounds. I don't know, I'm a World Eaters player, I don't run them. But either way, that's going to kill the Vindicator. The Vindicator's going to roll to see if it explodes. It does not. You remove the Vindicator, and now you get to make a consolidate move after fighting. So what you're going to do is you can consolidate so that you touch this, because you have to end within base contact of the closest target. But what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that with that consolidate move, we end up within 7 inches of another target, right? So he's going to consolidate over to here, base contact that Vindicator, and he's basically going to, now, the Vindicator has to allocate attacks into the Helbrute. So the Vindicator's probably got like 3 attacks, probably hits on 4s, so it's probably 1 hit, won't be wounding on a 2, so it does no damage to the Helbrute, and now the Helbrute gets to do all of those attacks again. So let's say, for argument's sake, to speed it up, he kills that Vindicator as well. Well, he's now free to consolidate another 6 inches. So what he's going to do is he's going to consolidate around this way. Now, this Vindicator is now tagged, and it must fight. So it fights, it fails to kill the Helbrute fights, kills the Vindicator, picks the Vindicator up. Now, this Helbrute's free to make a consolidate move, because he just made attacks. So he's going to consolidate around to here, tag this guy at the front, because that was the closest model. He's now going to fight. This time he's going to use his fists, and if we've done this correctly, he'd be within 6 inches of those 8-bound. So you're going to go with 9 attacks with his fist. He'll be hitting on 2s. So there's 3 misses there, but there is 2 sustained hits. Then he's going to be wounding those guys on 2s. And because we did the extra AP, he'll be AP 3, so that's 6 saves. He's got 6 ups. Fails all of them. 3 damage each. That's going to kill all 5 of those Havocs. Now, he's free to consolidate again. Now, he has to end closest to that model, but what we want to do is we want to end within 7 inches of the Rhino. So he's going to go to here. Now, it's worth noting that at this stage, the Helbrute's taken no damage, because he's been hit by some Havocs and some Vindicators. But now we've got the Warp Talons. They probably do some damage to him, but they're not likely to kill him, and then he is very likely to kill them in return. So if they strike him, they fail to kill him, he strikes back, picks up the Warp Talons. So you can see what's happening here with this Helbrute. It's absolutely insane. And now, because he just made attacks, killed the Warp Talons, he's free to do a 6-inch consolidate move, hits that vehicle. Now it's worth noting that the 8-bound would have had to have fought before all of these activations happened, because basically the Helbrute's going to fight because he charged, then the next unit to fight has to be the 8-bound. But the 8-bound probably aren't going to kill that Rhino, so that's fine. The Helbrute's going through, tagging everything, and now the Helbrute's going to fight and kill the Rhino. Now when he kills the Rhino, the Legionaries and the Chosen that are inside have to disembark. They're probably going to position something like this with their Legionaries so that they're within 3 inches of the Rhino. And now, because the Chosen can't go anywhere within 3 inches, they're going to try and put them 6 inches away. So they're going to be like, yep, cool. They're going to go over here somewhere. So they're safe. and fire away from the Helbrute. Then you remove the Rhino as a casualty, you consolidate into the Legionaries. Now those Legionaries are going to get to reroll their wounds against you because you're on the objective, but if they do fail to kill you, you can then pick them up as well. And it's worth noting that at any stage along this process, if you were concerned that the target you were going to consolidate into would kill that Helbrute, because he's going to take damage over the multiple fights, if you were worried they're going to kill you, you just don't consolidate into them. A consolidate move is always optional, so you could hypothetically go, I'm not going to bother consolidating into that. And so you could have, in theory, left those Legionaries there. Or if you didn't want to kill the Rhino because you didn't want the Legionaries to disembark because maybe they have more OC on the objective or something like that and you're concerned that it's going to flip, you could choose not to consolidate into the Rhino. But the principle is mainly what we've done here into the vehicles. Very, very powerful combo. Alrighty, so here's our second example. We've got the same layout where we've got some Forge Fiends hiding over there that our opponent has clumped up here to hide from, because Forge Fiends are really, really good at killing marine bodies, and they're even pretty good at killing light marine tanks. So our opponent has hidden everything behind this ruin here so that they don't get shot, but we, in this example, are going to be using a Gore-Track Onslaught Helbrute. So what we're going to be able to do is, in our movement phase, we're going to spend a command phase before we move, spend a command point, before we move this Helbrute, and that's going to give him the ability to move through walls. So we're going to move him his 9 inches, which gets him just onto this side of the wall. And then we're going to charge. We're going to roll something decent for our charge. 5, that's plenty enough to get him to touch this Impulsor. And now, because we're Gore-Track, we don't get the +1 attack and +2 strength. So we're going to go with our hammer here. So we're going to get 8 attacks. We're hitting on 4s with sustained hits. So we've got 3 misses there. 4 misses, but we do have 2 sustained hits on those 6s. So that's a pretty decent roll. Then we're going to be wounding this thing on 3s. We roll our wound rolls. We failed 2 of them. So we got 4 wounds through. It's AP 3. I'm going to assume this thing has a 2-up save. It's going to be 5 ups. So 2 get through. Then we do our damage, which is 8 plus 2, so 10 damage. So we failed to kill it. However, it now has to strike us back, right? So it strikes us back. It's a transport. It's going to fail to kill us, which means we get to fight again. If we just did 10 damage to it, we're going to do another 10 most likely. It doesn't have 20 wounds, I know that much. So that means that it's going to die, and the guys that are inside are going to have to disembark. Now, interestingly, because of where these other units are positioned, he actually has to bring his guys out over here. He has no choice, right? So he brings out the Eradicators that were inside and removes the vehicle. And now we go to do our post-fight consolidate move, and because where he's positioned these guys, they're actually closer now than them. So with our consolidate, we consolidate into these guys. They now have to fight us because they're within engagement range, so they're going to pile in, make their attacks, these guys being Eradicators and not killing a Helbrute in melee. And now that we're into these 3 wound Eradicators, we're going to use our fist instead of our hammer. So again, 8 attacks. This time, assuming there's some 8 bounds nearby, which you always want to run these guys in a pair, you're going to be hitting these guys on 2s. So let's roll that up. So we got 1 miss, but we did get 2 sustained hits. And then we're going to be wounding these guys on 2s with our fist. Roll on to wound. That's everything wounds. 3 of them being dev wounds, potentially, depending on what blessings you took. But either way, let's say that we didn't have the dev wounds. So they're all wounds. It's AP 2, so they're going to be getting 5-up saves. They roll. They pass 1 of their saves, which means this guy just did enough damage to kill 8 Eradicators. So that picks up all of these Eradicators. And now that we've finished our fight, we're free to consolidate in to these Inceptors because they're closer than the Intercessors. We then get to fight those Inceptors. They get to fight us first, of course. It's really important to note that each time you consolidate into something, it gets to fight you first. So you don't want to consolidate into something big and scary. So They fight us, but they're Inceptors. They're not killing a Helbrute in melee, so they're gone as well when we do our fights. Now, in this instance, we actually might choose not to consolidate into these Interceptors. There's two reasons for that. One is that we're not likely to kill all 10 of them, and the other is that they're currently not on the objective marker. So if we consolidate into them, they then get to make a pile-in move, and they're going to be able to put more objective control on that marker than what we have. And as a result, we don't claim that objective off them. And then when it flicks over to their next turn, they're going to score the primary for holding this objective. So we may choose in this situation not to, but assuming we did, they fight, assuming also that they then fail to kill the Helbrute, which is not a given because there might be some special weapons in that unit or something. But assuming they don't, we then go in with our fist. We've got our 8 attacks because we're Gortrak. We're hitting on 2s because there's 8 bound nearby. So we get, oh, that's cocked. We get everything hits but no sustained. And then we're going to be wounding them on 2s. That's 7 dead. 2, 4, 6, 7. Well, they're going to get 5 up saves because it's AP2. Which they passed 1. So it killed 6 of them. So there's an example of why you might not want to do this. Because they're going to remove 6 like so. Leaving 4 guys. And leaving 2 of them on the objective, which gives them more objective control than our Helbrute. So that's an example of where you might not want to pile into a big unit of Marines, but if that was a unit of 5 or 2 units of 5, you could pile into one, fight it, survive, then consolidate into the next one, fight it, survive, and take out both of them. But in this example, of course, it wasn't the case. So that's one way that we can use the Helbrute to kill a transport and then kill the guys that disembark from the transport, and then also pick up everything that surrounds them. And then for our third example, we've got these cowardly Tau. They're hiding behind this wall because we've got some Forge Fiends over here and over here. They don't want to get shot by those because they don't want to lose the shooting match to a World Eater, because that would be embarrassing. So basically what we're going to do, in the same way that we did with the Night Lords, we're going to rapid ingress on a Helbrute so that he's within 6 inches of the table edge, which putting him here means that he's out of line of sight of both of those Riptides, out of line of sight of that Hammerhead. And then in our movement phase, we're going to be able to either move him 9 inches this way or this way and hit that castle. What we're going to do is we're going to go this way, and this you'll see why in a moment. If we go that way 9 inches, and then we roll our charge, which I don't see a world in which we fail, but we're charging just this Riptide up the front here. We roll our charge, we roll the 5. That's going to let us to move essentially 5 inches straight like that and tag that Riptide. We're then going to fight into the Riptide. We're going to probably not kill it in our first volley. Let's test. In this case, let's say that we're back on the Berserker Warband. So we're going to get 9 attacks. And we are hitting it on, I think you use the hammer here because I believe they've got toughness 8 with 2 up saves. So we're rolling atrociously here. But even with the hammer, that would have been all missing. With the fist, sorry. So we've got 2 sustains, so 2 hits. That's 4 total. Wounding it on 2s. Everything wounds. Then if it's got a 2-up save, this is AP3, so it's going to be pushing it to a 5-up. So it fails 3 of them. And then we do 3d6, so that's 10, 11, 12, 13 damage. I think they have 16, but either way, say we don't kill it on that first volley, it now has to fight us. It's not going to kill us in combat because it's a Riptide. Then we fight again and we kill it. So they remove the Riptide. And now in this case, we are within 3 inches of that one. We're just out within 4 inches of that one. So we're going to be able to pile in here to this Hammerhead. It's going to have to strike us because we're in engagement range. It's not going to kill us. We're going to fight back with our hammer. We are going to kill it, hypothetically. Then we're going to consolidate over into this Riptide. It's going to fight us. It's not likely to kill us. Let's roll that again. Let's see if I can kill it. So, hitting on 4s. Okay, that was god-awful. We got 3 hits that time and no sustains. However, we're wounding on 2s. All 3 wound. It's got 5-up saves. It passes 1, 2d6 damage. So what we're going to do is we're going to go like that. So that's going to do 6 damage. And then the next one is going to do another 6 damage. So I'm not sure how many wounds they got, but if that didn't kill it, it's fine, because we're holding this objective, we've cleared them off, and we're in base contact with that Riptide, so he's not going to be able to fall back and shoot. But hypothetically, say we did kill him, we are then able to consolidate into the tank, fight the tank, and if we kill that devilfish, all these guys jump out of the devilfish, we remove that, then we're able to consolidate into these guys and strike them, after they've struck us, of course, like I said. But the thing is because we only have our 9 attacks because we made a charge this turn, and there's 10 of them, unless we roll really hot on the sustains, which, just for morbid curiosity, I'm going to roll it to see whether I can. Okay, so I got 1 miss and I got 3 sustains. So, that's pretty good. This is using the fist, of course. So there's your sustains. Wounding these lads on 2s. So there's 1 failed wound. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. They'll be getting 6 up saves here. Okay, so luckily for them, they just rolled 4 6s, which means that of that fight, 6 of them are going to die. Which that means that those 4 survived. And because they survived, they're in base contact with us, the combat ends, and we're no longer on that objective. So this is why it's important to decide whether or not you want to engage somebody, because we could have, when we were here, fought the transport, killed it, the guys disembark, and then we could have just not consolidated into them and stayed on the objective. So the consolidate moves are always an optional thing. Now, the reason that we didn't go when originally the setup was we've rapid ingressed over here somewhere, and there was like tanks over here, and tanks over here, and Riptides over here, something like that. The reason that we came around this way, as opposed to coming around the back and going around this way, is because if we came around this way, fought and killed this first Riptide, we are then going to have to consolidate into this Devilfish, because it's now the closest target. If we consolidate into that Devilfish and fight it and kill it, he could then, in theory, disembark all of these Fire Warriors over here, putting the Fire Warriors closer to the Helbrute. I don't know, I don't have the measuring on me, but something like that, There's Fire Warriors out here. And now, when we remove that Helbrute now can't consolidate into the Hammerhead, and it can't consolidate into the Riptide, because the Fire Warriors are closer, and your consolidate moves always have to go closer to the closest. So then you consolidate in there, and like we saw before, even with my hot rolls on the sustained, we still only killed 6 of them, which means they're going to remove 6, they're going to leave 1 guy in base contact with you, and now, not only do you not get to make any more fights, you also don't get to kill this Riptide, this Hammerhead, and take the objective. So it's really important to note the sequence of where your consolidates are going to be before you choose which direction you charge from. Because if you go in from this direction, you're stuck there now, and you've actually achieved nowhere near as much as you otherwise could have. Because if you go around this way, you can actually clear those 2 models that are on the objective, and then get stuck into the other things like the transport, etc. So positioning of a Helbrute is really, really important, and the way that you charge, the direction that you charge, and where you put yourself is critical to getting the most out of this unit. Alrighty guys, so there we have some examples of how to use the Helbrute. There's a few really important things to note, and remember these when you're doing it. One is that every time you fight, you get to make a pile-in move, make attacks, and then a consolidate move. And if you're within engagement range of an enemy, they have to fight you. So after they fight, you can then pile in, make attacks, consolidate again. So you keep doing that over and over. It's also worth noting that the positioning of your Helbrute is really, really important. If you come in from the wrong direction, like we saw on the Tau example, you can find yourself getting nowhere near as much value out of the Helbrute. The tip that you want to do is avoid large units of infantry. You want to save them till last. They want to be the last thing that you strike. So in the same way with the intercessors and those Fire Warriors, you want to make sure they're the last thing to jump out, because your opponent can bog you down if they throw large squads of Marines or otherwise tough units into you. The other thing to note is that you want to make sure that you never consolidate into something that can just kill you. Now, we didn't have any examples here. I was hoping that the Lord and his unit were going to pop out, but the Chaos Lord with those chosen, if you pile into them or consolidate into them, thinking that they're going to fight you, you're going to live, and then you're going to be able to fight them back, that might not work. So be very careful. Consider whether or not the thing you're about to consolidate into has the capacity to kill you. And if it does, don't consolidate into it. Either stay stationary, consolidate into something else if you can, or maybe use the neg1 damage stratagem from the Berserker Warband to make sure that when you do consolidate into that Chaos Lord and his unit, they don't kill you. And that's going to make sure that you're able to then activate into them and do that additional volley of damage. The other thing worth noting is to navigate terrain. It's very difficult to do unless you're in the gore track. So one of the advantages, like we saw with the Space Marine example, is that you can position your Helbrute aggressively up front and charge straight through multiple series of walls. So that's very, very effective. Whereas if you don't have that, make sure you are leaning on those rapid ingresses so that you can come in from those table edges and get those angles on your opponent's targets. And the beautiful thing is in order for them to prevent that rapid ingress, like we did with the Tau, they would have had to have had a unit up front here. And if they have a unit up front here, you can then charge it with Berserkers. You can charge that unit with your 8-bound or your Spawn or whatever it is that you have around here, you can charge them. Or you can move your Forge Fiend out to a position where it can see that unit, shoot it and kill it, but not expose yourself to their Riptides and their Hammerheads. So that means that they've taxed them a unit, you keep your Helbrute in reserve so that you can rapid ingress it next turn, and now they have to decide, do I put something else out there to block the Helbrute, or do I let the Helbrute into my lines? You put your opponent in really difficult positions when you have a Helbrute somewhere in reserves that's able to come in and threaten to do catastrophic damage to your opponent. The other really important thing to note, and you will have noticed this in these examples, is that having 3 Forge Fiends in your army, I know it's not the most World Eaters strategy ever to have that shooting, but that shooting really does activate the Helbrutes. If you didn't have that shooting, these armies would spread out and makes it very hard for you to fight something and then consolidate into something else. But having the Forge Fiends means that your opponent can't afford to spread out because they need to hide. They need to burrow in and hide behind those walls so they don't just get shot to death. And in doing so, they expose themselves to the Helbrute as a threat. So there's a lot of stuff to take away there. Obviously, I didn't have the data sheets on me for the Marines or the Tau or the Chaos Space Marines because that's my phone right there, which has all the data sheets on it. So that was a challenge, but I did some approximations and sort of figured out roughly what you could expect from a game. So yeah, that's some live examples. Let's jump back over to the PC and do some summary of some other ideas on how to get a lot of value out of your Helbrutes. Alrighty guys, as always, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed that video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. If you want to show your support for the channel, head over to blogforthebloodgod.com, or if you want to, head over to Etsy. I've got dice listed, and the next 14 people to buy a set of my black dice are going to get a free gift that's going to help you utilize some of the tricks we talked about in this video. So with all that being said, thanks again guys, I really do appreciate your ongoing support, it means a lot to me, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.